Hey, this is Debi Gilboa. I'm going to wait a little bit and let everybody get going. Hi, how's everybody doing? I'm going to give a minute or so for everyone to catch up before we get rolling. But if you're here, trying to figure out how I can see what you're saying while we're doing this. There it is. All right, fantastic. Hey, there's a couple of people out there. How cool. Hey, everybody. How are you? I'm going to sign this whole thing. One reason is I think a few of my deaf friends might be showing up to see what's happening here. The other reason is that you can see different signs happening at the same time. My name is Debi Gilboa. I have a name sign in the deaf community. It's Dr. G, because many of the deaf folks in my area know me as their doctor. But I have a lot of friends that I met before I ever went to medical school that made me really interested in learning sign language more. And I'm going to tell you and explain a few different things about sign language before we get started learning the exact signs for the song that we're going to be able to sign the whole thing before we're finished today. And that song, if you go to Jewish camp, is probably a song you know and you will sing again. So knowing the signs will help you remember the words and help you to make singing it more interesting. So I want to inform you, and the sign, see how I take something from my head and give it to you. That is an iconic sign. About half of signs in American Sign Language are pictures. Like, guess what this is? It's something you drink. Can you guess? Milk. Milk. It's an iconic sign for milking a cow. How about this one? If you guessed car, you were right. If you guessed drive, you were right. Just like in English, in sign language, there are signs that are the same and you know what they mean depending on how and when you use them. Since I know that you guys are hearing, I'm going to stop for a minute and ask my kids to be quiet. You see that sign? Hey guys, be quiet. Thank you. So that sign can be really, really useful. Try it. Be quiet. There are other ways that you can get somebody to stop. So let's talk about the parts of signing. There's 4 in every sign. Just like words have the individual letters and the way that they go together, the order that they're in, and how they start and how they finish, signs have 4 parts, and even one part changes the meaning. Just like your name would not be your name if I switched the order of the first 2 letters, right? So what are the 4 parts? Well, 1 is your hand shape. So I can make the exact same sign with a different hand shape and it changes. And I'll show you in a minute, but I want to tell you the other parts of signs. So 1 is hand shape. Another is location. Where in space in front of me or behind me or to the side, where do I make that sign? The third is movement. How do my hands move to make that sign? And the 4th is facial expression. And as my facial expression changes, the meaning can change entirely. You know what that's like. If you hear your mom say, "Come here," or "Come here," the meaning totally different, right? Sounds different. Well, in that same way, facial expression changes the meaning in sign language. So let me give you some examples of this. Hand shape. If I take my non-dominant hand, that's the hand that you don't want to write with or to throw a ball with, your non-dominant hand, your not as strong hand. So for me, that's my left. So if I take my left hand, my non-dominant hand, and I put it out flat like it's the floor, and my right hand has this movement of getting onto it, but my hand shape is like this, that means stand up. And if I do this, that means kneel down. My facial expression can be exactly the same. My motion is the same. And the location is the same, but my hand shape changes the meaning. Another example, I said that movement changes the meaning of the sign. So this is follow. And I might say to you, I'm saying you, come follow me, right? This is follow. This is chase. The location in front of my body is really exactly the same. The hand shape is the same. The facial expression could even be the same, but the movement changes. Follow, chase. Another example of how one part changes it is location. So if I have 5 hand shapes, meaning both my hands are shaped like 5s, and my movement is to come in and to cross my fingers like this, that sign up here in front of my shoulders or my chest, that means football. But if I do that same hand shape and that same movement, but the location is down here in front of my belly, that sign means pregnant. That's really different. One time when I was first learning, I was in class and I made that mistake. They asked me what I did on the weekend, and I said that I watched pregnant. So facial expression changes everything also. So I can have the same location, the same hand shape, and the same movement, my pinched fingers going in the same location right by my eyes, from closed to open. And this means wake up. This morning I woke up at 7. But if my facial expression changes like this, that means surprise. And it's all facial expression. You go from woke up to surprised, just like that. Now, for anybody who's ever had to take a language at school, I can tell that you probably had some experience learning tenses. Im אתה לומד בעברית, if you learn in Hebrew. למדת, you learned. אתה לומד, you're learning. תלמד, someone will teach you the phrase, exactly how you put those words together, even though it sounds like the same word, the way you put the letters together changes the meaning. To mean it happened before, it's happening now. Or to say tilmad, you will learn, so to learn in the future. So in sign language, all you have to do is start by saying when something happened, and then everything is in present tense. So if it makes you kind of crazy to try and learn all the different tenses, sign language might be for you. If I want to tell you a story, first I say yesterday, or 2 weeks ago, or 4 years ago, and then I tell it to you like it's happening now. I don't have to say with every verb or even part of the words, it happened, it happened, it happened, it happened. I give it to you in the time period, and then I just tell it like it's now. The same as if I want to tell you something that happens in the future. I can just tell you 3 months from now, or I could even say I in the future, which you might translate as I will, and then the whole rest of my story is told in the present tense. That makes it easier when you're first learning, for sure. So, what are some of the different signs that you would maybe use at camp? Well, one, maybe you're sitting at lunch and somebody puts their hands up, and everybody at camp knows that that means you're supposed to be quiet. You really, really have to go to the bathroom. Like, really have to go to the bathroom. And so you get your counselor's attention, but you're not making any sound. And your counselor turns to you and you sign bathroom. You see my hand? That's a T hand shape. I bet that some of you have learned some of the letters in American Sign Language, but even if you haven't, my thumb on my dominant hand is just tucked in between my first finger and my second finger, and then I shake it back and forth. And I might do it with this facial expression if I was a counselor, and I wanted to let my other counselor know, oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom for a minute. I would just be like, bathroom. But if I was trying to explain that I really, 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 really need to go to the bathroom, then facial expression matters. So I'd look at my counselor and I'd go, and they'd probably be like, oh, fine, go. It's a way that you can ask and stay quiet. If your friend is trying to tell you something, but you don't want to get in trouble, and they said that everybody's hands are up and be quiet, and you know the director's looking around and they'll totally call you out by name if you start talking, and they're like poking you, your friend's poking you, you could turn to them and be like, stop. And that stop is not rude. It just says, stop. But your facial expression adds to it. So you might say, and they know that you think that they're funny and you want to know what they have to say, but you want them to be quiet right now. Or you might be done. This sign means finished. You don't want it right now. Pull something towards you for want. Pull something towards you and drop it for don't want. You don't want it right now. So you're like, does that feel like something you would maybe do with your brother or your sister? Or maybe that you would see from your parents, that you're fidgeting around and moving all the time during different prayers on Friday night. And this sign for Shabbat, Friday into Saturday, this is Shabbat. This particularly doesn't mean Friday and it doesn't mean Saturday. It means that Friday night transition into Shabbat. And they want you to just stop for a minute because you're on a Zoom call with your whole family and somebody's saying something or giving a little talk or praying. And you would say, and they look at you and they go, and you can tell from their facial expression, it's a serious one. So there are all kinds of different ways to get information across. I wonder if anyone noticed that when I signed pray, I signed something that we don't usually do with our hands when we pray in Judaism. I did this. Most of American Sign Language has a Christian, actually a Catholic base. So many of the signs have that in them. But did you know that there are also differences by the area that you're in? So for anyone who's watching who's from Pittsburgh, you know that if I say the word yins, that's a Pittsburgh word, the dialect of English that we use here in Pittsburgh that means all of you. If you're from the South, you might say that all y'all. And if you're from Philly, you'd maybe say yous guys. We have in English lots and lots and lots of different dialects. Well, the same is true of sign language, where the same word might be really different in different parts of the country. And sometimes we know how it popped up like that and why, and sometimes we don't. But I can tell you that here in Pittsburgh, we say Monday, that's an M, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's gonna be the same in most of the country that I've seen. And I've signed in Texas and in California and in New York and in Pennsylvania. But we sign Sunday, which most of the country signs Sunday, which is the same sign for worship, which is a very Catholic base. We sign it like this, Sunday. And that's because here at the Western Pennsylvania School for the Deaf, that was the day people got to go home and see their mom because it was a residential school. And so Sunday started being signed, as I've learned the story, and other people would maybe know other stories, as Mom's Day, Sunday. So words develop and languages develop, but a lot of American Sign Language is really Catholic based because it was Catholic priests that brought it here from France. In Israel, you maybe would wonder, do they have a different sign language? Yep. Something that's really interesting for me is that I see people from England signing, and British Sign Language is so different that I can't understand it at all. French Sign Language, I can understand about half because American Sign Language developed from that. Did you see a sign that you recognized? Did you see me do football but kind of move my hands around? That's because that's the sign for America or American, is football all over the place. Isn't that funny? And I think that's going to change about football being all over the place, but the sign will probably stay. I'm mentioning that because I want you to know the sign for Israel is an older sign. It's this sign here where people take an I for Israel and outline a beard. But I looked today because I was wondering, what do they use in Israel in ISL, which is a different language, mostly developed from Germany. Oh my gosh, you guys, they're at it again. Hey guys. Shh. So, Israeli Sign Language developed from Germany, mostly. It's not the same language, but it developed from there because that's where people came to Jerusalem to teach it. So I thought, well, that sign's got to be different, right? No, really. They use the same sign that's used here for the word Jewish, beard, which depends on the idea of religious Jewish men having a big long beard. That sign Jewish here in ISL, in Israeli Sign Language, it's actually Israel. So you'll see that there are other biases in language, and you can find them in all languages, but you can find them in almost all sign languages as well. And that matters because we're going to talk about a Jewish song, and I want you to understand how we got to the words that I'm going to teach you. So what's the song? Well, let's get there. The song that the campers at CYJ picked for today is Oseh Shalom. I'm going to play it. It's pretty short, which you know, if you know it.
Oseh Shalom Bimroma.
Does that sound familiar?
Oseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimroma. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen.
Okay, so it's pretty much the same sentence over and over and over, right? That's going to make our jobs easier. First, before we can know how to sign it, you have to know what it means. And not only what exactly the words are, but what is the intent behind it. That sign, meaning and intent, is not exactly the same as what's that word. Oseh, that word in Hebrew, means to make or to do. But in this song, it's translated for us to understand the one who creates peace. Oseh Shalom, the one who creates peace. Not make and not do exactly, but create, which is a forehand shape that comes out of your mind and makes kind of circles in the air as it moves up and away from you. The one who creates peace. Peace is becoming calm. So you take your hands and you put your dominant hand facing away from you and your non-dominant hand facing that, and you switch them, and then you spread it out. Like Ufres Shalom Aleinu, right? So you spread it out. So Oseh Shalom. But in that song, it says the one who creates peace in heaven. So the sign for heaven is locational. It's up above us. And now I'm going to try and move my camera so you can see above me a little bit. Oseh Shalom Bimromav. And you're showing that area up above you. And you can put your hand up as high as you want. But I'm going to do it so that it fits in the camera. Oseh Shalom Bimromav. Hu Yaseh, who will bring it over us. And Hu Yaseh, who will make it, he will create it. But in sign language, the idea I'm trying to get across is the one who creates peace in the heavens will bring that down to us. Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael, and on all of Israel. So we're going to say, we'll bring it down on us. Ve'al on all. So your non-dominant hands hangs out here in the middle. And your other one scoops everything around it and lands back on top of it. Ve'al kol, and then I showed you this one, Yisrael. And then the last thing that we have to say is Ve'imru, amen. Ve'imru, and we will say, or it is said, or they said. So we're going to say. Ve'imru. And then amen is really interesting. I looked this up. I did a little bit of research before we were together today because the sign amen in most of the world, especially here in the United States, is signed like this. Amen or amen. But since we don't make that hand shape very often when we pray, when it's not really connected to Judaism, I looked to see how Jewish scholars, Jewish deaf scholars, are signing amen. And they're signing it like this. You put your dominant hand out flat, take your other hand in a thumbs up, and stamp it like we agree. So, ve'imru, imru, amen. So we're going to try it, and then we're going to try it a couple more times. Stick with me.
Say shalom bimroma. Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Say shalom bimroma. Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom.
Okay, so now we got the same words. Creates peace, creates peace, creates peace. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
You can do that, and it looks pretty cool after you start being able to do it fast enough. So first, you sing slower, and then you start to sign faster. But it was really only, let's see, how many signs? Oseh shalom, that's 2. Bimromav, that's 3. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu, that was 4 signs you've learned so far. Ve'al kol Yisrael, we're up to 6. Ve'imru, imru, amen. 8 signs, you can get the meaning of that whole song. I hope that was fun. I know that it can be really weird to try and pick up a new language, but you learn some things about that language. And I want to know that you can think now a little differently. Sign language is not a code for English. It's a whole language. It has some jokes that wouldn't really be funny if you didn't know sign language. It has a culture that has developed, like Judaism has a culture that has developed. It has beliefs and ideas and a history. And so it's not the same as learning, say, Braille, where you just learn this means A, and this means B, and this means C. It's got letters, words, and ideas that belong to it. As a matter of fact, one of the ways that linguists are people who study and learn about language as an idea. They tell us that you can know that something is a language itself and not just a code is if it has some words that can't be exactly translated into another language. So I want to teach you one. Do you know the feeling if you're telling a story about somebody that's maybe not exactly how you'd want them to hear it, and then the person you're talking to gives you that look that says, they're probably right behind you right about now? And that feeling when you realize that you may have been overheard by someone that you didn't want to overhear you, where you feel like, well, here's that horrible feeling inside of like, oh, I wish I could take back what I just said, or I'm so embarrassed. Here's what that sign looks like. Ooh. Do you know that feeling? There's not an exact word for that in English or in any of the other languages that I've learned. I think that it's really interesting to see sign language isn't a code, it's a language. It has a culture. Deaf people have an identity. And if it's something that's really interesting to you, I'll tell you that at a lot of high schools and many universities, you can do what I did and learn sign language to fulfill your language requirement. I hope that this is interesting. And if you have any other questions, I'll come back and check the comments, and I'll be happy to see you online. Bye, everybody.